Welcome in. It's time to talk about the crit damage primary, the crit chance primary, and the offense primary. I'm going to discuss the benefits of all three and kind of tell you which one you should actually be going with. Also going to talk a little bit about offense set bonuses, crit damage set bonuses, and the benefits of those. And so this should be really exciting, right? All right. If you don't know me, I am Wink from the Shadow Hour Podcast. We're a weekly podcast that covers Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. I think we give some of the best strategy advice around, so make sure you come check us out. You can check us out on YouTube, your favorite podcatcher, or Twitch, which is where we actually live stream, and discord.me/shattered order is where you can, of course, find our awesome community and lots of good advice there as well. All right, so before we look at this first chart here, a couple things need to be explained is how the game calculates damage. So if you put an offense percent, so like a offense primary that, a 5.88 or 8.5% primary, that only calculates based on your last completed gear level, what your damage number was then. So any offense that you have added in your current gear level is not actually calculated on that. So that actually goes towards benefiting critical damage because that will move the crit chance lower as you add more and more gear, because that additional offense is not being calculated in that 15% bonus that an offense set bonus offers you. However, offense set bonuses are still fantastic. I'll get to that a little bit more here in a second. So now that we kind of know that and got that out of the way, what I did was took a flat 6,000 damage number and put a 8.5% offense primary with it, looked at a crit damage set versus an offense set, and the various primaries that you can go with that. So an offense primary, a crit chance primary, and a crit damage primary, and put those on. And that is what you see graphed out here on the screen, along with the crit chance crossover points. So a crit damage set with a crit damage primary at the 222%, as you see up there, you have to be at 80% crit chance for a crit damage set with a crit damage primary to be better than an offense set with a crit damage primary. That is the way to get the most damage on average per attack. And as you see on the graph, those two lines are far and away above the other ones. And, that's kind of why crit damage is so good, because, the offense, let's see, we'll go to where the green and the gold lines intersect. So that is basically an offense set with a crit chance primary versus the offense set with a crit damage primary. And those cross over at 23.8%. So if your character is at 23.8% crit chance or higher, you should not be using a crit chance primary on them. You should be using a crit damage primary on them, because you will be getting more damage on average per attack. And that stays true all the way up until you get to 80% in this theoretical example. And then once you get above that, you should be switching to a crit damage set with a crit damage primary. So this is why crit damage is so good, because most characters don't have crit chances that low. Grandmaster Yoda, who I am going to go over a real world example with here in 1 second, has a very, very low crit chance. But there are so many other factors that can come into play, whether it's unique abilities from, say, R2-D2, or leader abilities like Revan, who Jedi offer 5% to all of their Jedi, things like that that can be factored into this that make, your crit damage primaries a little bit better. Now, let's take a look at the crit chance primaries, and that'll be the red and the gold lines that you see on the chart. And so the offense set bonus with crit chance primary is the best up until that character has, like I discussed, the 23.8% crit chance. And with a crit chance primary, a 20% crit chance primary, that would actually be 43.8% on that character. So if you're not getting above that number, then, crit chance primary is not a bad way to go. So you really have to be at a huge crit chance deficit to make critical chance primaries worth it. There are other situations. I mean, you have Trey leads that do 40% crit avoidance. You have crit avoidance arrows, things like that basically remove your crit chance, so you can kind of look at the graph and kind of see exactly what that would do and get an idea from there. But I mean, the big benefits of crit chance primaries is the fact that they can help mitigate that. And they're also really good for characters like First Order Executioner, Greedo, Wicket, who get turn meter or bonus turns whenever they score a critical hit. That can be really useful. Other characters I like crit chance on would be Boba and Vader because they get bonus based on the number of debuffs that they're removing or dispelling, on their specials. So crit landing a crit with those characters is going to be very important because it's going to increase your damage output by so much that it's worth it. Could also see an argument for offense primary on them for that same reason, but it kind of depends on exactly what your goals are with those characters. But that's just an example of characters who will generally benefit from critical chance. Now, going back to the chart, you will see the black line and the maroon line. Those two lines indicate these stat bonuses with offense primaries. And as you see, both the crit damage with a crit damage primary and crit chance primary, I mean, both of those start pretty low. And then the one with the offense primary is, super low as well. That offense primary, what it primarily does is help you when you're not scoring critical hits, obviously. So at those low crit chances, it's going to be really useful. But of course, that offense primary, as soon as you get around that 21%, if you're using critical damage set, you're better off going with the crit damage primary rather than the offense primary. So I don't see a whole lot of instances where offense primaries give you any benefit, because most characters have, 30% crit chance or so. Like, that's a really common number. And, if you kind of look right here where that 30% crit chance line is, your offense set with your crit damage primary is going to be kind of the best way to go. But like I said, this chart is kind of just generalized if it's optimal at the top of gear level, no additional gear, no offense secondaries. That's really important too, because offense secondaries will, of course, lower that crit chance crossover point as well. Which brings me to chart number 2. This is an example of my actual Grandmaster Yoda, and as you'll see, there is a little link up there. If you want to click that, you can see my strategy on actually modding Grandmaster Yoda, as a previous video that I did. And he is kind of interesting because you can use, a lot of offense on him, offense primary, even on the arrow, and he is amazing. But these are the actual numbers that I took from my character. He's gear 12 with all 5 pieces on him, completely maxed. But what I did is I put my best crit damage set with as much secondary offense as I could manage, 3 offense primaries, and I did the same thing with a crit damage set and an offense set, and I took a look at those numbers. So that is the 6346. That is the best I could get, with no triangle on there. And then I did the same thing with an offense set, and I got to 7013. So what I then do is plug in the critical damage percent for each of those, that I want to compare, and then the crit chance that I want to compare. And then, I put on an offense primary to see kind of what kind of numbers that gave me. I don't believe I used a 6 dot slice primary. It was a 5 dot. Not that it's going to matter a whole lot, but so what you'll see here is for my Grandmaster Yoda with the mods that I actually have, if he's at 51.7% crit chance, he will do more damage on average with a crit damage set with a crit damage primary. So, for example, in the phase 2 team that I use with Revan lead, that team, he will get an additional 40% crit chance. So even with his 16% base crit chance, he's at 56% crit chance. He exceeds that threshold. So if I'm using him in the raid, I definitely want that crit damage primary because he will always be above that crit chance threshold. And then on top of that, you'll have Basilisk Sean, who's giving crit chance up, which of course can be factored in because that affects things. Now, Arena is a little bit different. And in Arena, I run an offense set with a crit damage primary on him because you do have things like I mentioned earlier, like Atreya lead that reduces your crit chance. You have things like General Kenobi who gives out crit immunity, which can be very frustrating. So by going with an offense set with a crit damage primary, what you're doing is increasing that bottom end of your baseline, as you can kind of tell with this graph. The the offense set bonuses, they have a higher threshold kind of towards that bottom where they're not critting. And that is really important whenever, your crit chance is being mitigated in any way, shape, or form. So, after I look at all these numbers, plug those all in, you see kind of at the bottom are those ones with the offense primaries. And like I said, if you are really that worried and you know you're not going to crit or something, then I can see the argument for them. But on average, those two lines are always going to be at the bottom because they don't offer as much. They're really good on that low end. They offer more at the low end and, whenever you're basically at no crit chance. But as soon as you start creeping up at all, their usability drops through the floor. Now, that doesn't mean they're completely worthless, as I've stated before, but they're great for a Chex Mix team. That's pretty much all I use them for. I don't use them for anything else. There's not really any need. R2D2, he makes a really good argument for an offense primary as a triangle just because he shares stats. So that's an instance, if you have a character that's sharing stats or something like that, I could see that argument. But for the most part, you're going to want to avoid those offense primaries. Don't bother slicing those up to 6 dots, just not worth it. Crit chance and crit damage is probably where you should be looking. And of course, then the set bonus can kind of be determined by your actual numbers here. And this spreadsheet, this will be available on our Discord channel, discord.me/shatteredorder. If you go there, you'll be able to find this, check it out. You'll be able to plug in your numbers, see how things graph out. You may have to adjust the y-axis on the graph to actually see the graph just because the numbers can vary so much, depending on characters. But there may be instances where you have like a lot of secondary offense on, say an offense set. And there may be a point where you are never better off with a crit damage set than an offense set. It's totally possible. I did my CLS. I graphed out his last night with an offense set with a crit damage primary versus a crit damage set with a crit damage primary. And the crit damage mods that I have that actually have decent speed on them, because I want CLS to go pretty often, it didn't give enough offense, to balance out what the offense set offered. So there's a lot of things that can go on here with this graph, and that's why I created this thing, and I'm putting it out there for anyone to check out and use. Again, discord.me/shatteredorder. You can come download this, make your own copy, plug in your numbers, and it will tell you your actual crit chance crossover points, because it is really important to know, especially for like raids or something, to get an idea of what the best number is. Because I made a graph previously where I actually took my resistance trooper, and it's kind of, you can kind of look at it and get an idea, but it's not really tailored towards your character. And like I said, gear that you've added in your gear level and secondary offense, those things start moving that crit chance crossover point down dramatically the more and more that you add on. So that is why something like this can be so incredibly useful. So I hope you guys will check that out. Let's see. The only other thing I would like to mention is our friends over at Blue Designs. I'd like to thank those guys for the awesome microphone and great headphones that they make. If you need a microphone or headphones, I highly suggest Blue Designs. Go bluedesigns.com and you can get 20% off if you use promo code SOPOD. And of course, if you want to find out anything else that we do, discord.me/shatteredorder. You can follow us on Twitter @shatteredorder. And we would love it if you would go sub to us on Twitch, sub here on our YouTube channel. We're trying to grow our YouTube channel, so we would really appreciate that if you would share content, videos, and of course, spreadsheet. Hopefully, people find it useful. Any feedback you can give us on our Discord channel. That's kind of our primary way of contact. And if you would like to support what we do, you can go patreon.com/shattered order. We do roster reviews as well, so there's a tier for roster reviews if you'd like one of those. Go check that out, and I will catch you guys later.